First of all, I would like to thank Vivian for joining us today and helping us to make our week the educational of our week. It's truly an honor, a pleasure to have you. I also would like to thank our international guests. So we have Dimitri from France, we have Pierre also from France, we have Klaus here from Spain, and he's also from the educational committee of Leclerc. We also have our super friend, brother from United States, our dear Shuja. We have our friends from Argentina. We have Martin, the president, Fernando, the vice president, and I can say that almost the entire Argentina delegation. I think let's look for the good side of all of this. Who could imagine that we have a meeting like so mixed and everybody together? And also a special thanks to all the Brazilian members, our sponsors, and we have members from our first board of directors that are joining us. So everybody be very, very welcome. And I hope you enjoy it the most this afternoon with us. Lucas was the one who organized all of this for us together with Vivian. So the work is with you too.
Thank you. So I'll let you wanted to say something before I'll let you go beforehand.
Lucas?
Welcome to the celebration of the Concierge Day here in Brazil. So we are thrilled to have everybody with us. Vivian is a dear friend who I met during the opening of the Four Seasons São Paulo. At the time, she was working with the company at the Four Seasons Surf Club in Miami, and she was a great asset to our opening, explaining a lot of the company and introducing the high standards of excellence that we have at the Concierge. So it was really important. And I would like to share with guys some of the thoughts that she introduced to us. So it was really important, and I think everybody will be really happy to share those thoughts and to improve our position during those difficult times. But I think we cannot forget our roots of the excellence gets happy, and I think will be a really nice conversation. So I would like to introduce my dear friend Vivian. She has some South American roots, as she can explain herself, and I think during her time here in Brazil, she managed to be in São Paulo and in Rio. And I think she met both cities. I'm deeply sorry that we won't have the Pan American Congress this year in Rio for everybody to get to know Rio, but we are excited to have you guys next year as soon as the pandemic is over. So Vivian, time is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I will give you a little bit about myself so that you know a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Colombia. I moved to the United States to go to university. And I spent 13 years working in the United States, started out as a cook, and then became a bar manager, then a catering manager, then a food and beverage director. Then I went to teach at a culinary school. And I went back home where I joined Sofitel as the learning manager for the Sofitel legend Santa Clara Cartagena as they transitioned from a Sofitel luxury to a legend. I did the opening and pre-opening of the Sofitel Montevideo Casino Carrasco and Spa in Uruguay. I trained at Sofitel Argentina in Buenos Aires, when in the old one in La Recoleta. And then I transferred back with them to the United States, where I was a corporate training specialist for a year and a half, traveling to 8 different Sofitels in the United States, a different one every week. And then joined Forbes Travel Guide as an evaluator for a year. And I traveled the world evaluating hotels and spas and restaurants. I then joined W South Beach to do a revamp of their brand, and then joined Four Seasons to do the opening of the surf club and then the pre-opening. I spent almost 6 weeks in Sao Paulo doing the pre-opening for the Four Seasons Sao Paulo, and that's where Lucas and I met almost 2 years ago. Yes, it's crazy how time passes. And then I rejoined Forbes Travel Guide as a trainer and spent the last year training with them around the world. I've had the opportunity to train in Canada, Malaysia, Mexico, Puerto Rico, amongst other amazing places. And right now, because of the pandemic, I'm not working. But Lucas and I had initially talked about my going to Rio in August, and I'm happy to be doing this, and I'm happy to go back to Rio whenever the time comes up. But that's, in a very short way, the last 23 years of my life. So I prepared a small presentation that I will share with you. I really do very little when it comes to presentation. I like more to tell stories, but I wanted to be able to give you a little bit on, you know, what makes guests happy and what it is that we look for in making guests happy. And throughout this pandemic, I had the opportunity to take a course called The Science of Wellbeing on Coursera. And this really has changed the entire dynamic of what I believe customer service to be, especially when it comes to concierge. And I'll tell you why. The first thing, though, is I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea as to what the professor of this course, it's a course taught at Yale University, believes impacts people's happiness, and how you as concierge have the perfect key to be able to tap into each one of these 4 aspects to make a guest happy at any point in time. So we're not going to go into the physiological part, meaning people say, well, if you exercise and you eat right, you're happy. And yes, that's true, but we don't care about that right now. We care only about the emotional part, because the emotional part is really what gets the guests really excited to be able to work with you. So she mentions one thing, which is savoring experiences. And that is the ability to go somewhere and really enjoy the moment, enjoy the experience, enjoy the plate of food, enjoy the environment, the surroundings, in a way in which you are doing it because this is really what's the most important part. It's not just the food is good. Yes, the food has to be great, but it is also about how you live in the moment of enjoying that food. Who are you going with? Why are you going to that specific place? And really, how are you going to enjoy it? Not just by saying, oh, I took an Instagram picture and that was it. It's more, I'm actually in the moment. And you are the creators of savoring experiences. You are the perfect people to really show the guests and have them almost imagine themselves living the experience before they actually get to go and live it. You actually give them the idea of how this connects to them. And that is really one of the most impactful parts of somebody being happy, is being able to be in that moment and have the best possible experience. Another aspect of it is gratitude. And it's the idea that when somebody thanks you or somebody is grateful for you and your time, it makes you feel good. And I'm sure that each and every one of you at one point have received a letter or a note or a message or something from a guest telling you how you impacted their lives, how you changed their lives, how they will never forget you. And I know that that is worth more than just the tip that they're going to give you, because it is about gratitude. And at the same point, we have to think about one thing. The actual concierge experience is so important because it is so specific, and not everybody can do what you do. It takes a lot of expertise, a lot of experience. It takes a really great character and just a really great connection with guests. So when you're able to show off your gratitude to the guest about them coming to ask for your assistance, that in turn also makes them happy as a person. And that is something that will impact their experience. The next one is acts of kindness. And acts of kindness speaks about doing more than what you're asked to do. Because a lot of the times, it's really something that you know is going to be better. It's something that you know you can do and it doesn't take a lot. But it's something that, for that guest, it is going to be so much more important. There was an actual study that shows that giving somebody a gift of even, $5 to go get a cup of coffee is going to be a really impactful thing if the person does not expect it, if it's an act of kindness. And it's going to make the person who's giving it feel happy. It's going to make the person receiving it feel happy. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It just has to cost a lot of heart. And that's really one of the other impactful things. The most important, and the one that is at the core of what you do, is the social connection. Did a study that focused on social connection and also what it means to connect with people from a social perspective. And one of the really huge things that they focused on is that a very short conversation with a stranger where you connect with something that both of you can relate to will show that people will end up being happier because of it than if they had never had that conversation before. So just the actual act of having a conversation with you, of meeting you for the first time, when you show them that you care, is already going to impact the guest's happiness if you can really show care. And why do I say if you can really show care? About 2 months ago, I went to a 5-star hotel and I went to the concierge and I said to the concierge, I am looking for a recommendation. I'm so excited. I need to find a store to buy a dress for my twin sister's wedding. And immediately he lit up and said, oh my goodness, congratulations. Where is she getting married? I said, New York. He goes, great. So do you know the area? And at that moment, I realized that that initial connection where he was being really excited for me went away because he was now ready to move into his part of the job, which was telling me where to go. And in that moment also, he said to me, are you familiar with the area? I said, no, I'm really not. He said, well, it's really easy, although today is Sunday, so they might be closed today, so you might have to wait till tomorrow. Can you wait till tomorrow? Okay, so let me tell you, you only have to walk 2 blocks, and I can give you a map, but you don't really need a map. You just have to walk outside the door, make a left, walk 2 blocks, and you'll be right there, and there's a bridal boutique. Let me find the name for you. Took, went on the computer, took it out, printed it out, gave it to me. And in all these time when he was asking all these questions, he never gave me an opportunity to respond. And it wasn't really about what I had to say. It was about him just fulfilling this job. And what he gave me was the name of a bridal boutique where my sister could have gone to shop for her wedding gown, not for a store where I could have gone to shop for a dress to wear to my sister's wedding. Additionally, literally across the street from that hotel is a shopping center that has every single boutique that you can imagine. From, Saks Fifth Avenue and Neiman Marcus, which are the 2 major stores, all the way through Chanel and all of the small boutiques. He never mentioned those. Not even 20-minute drive away, there's another big shopping center that contains also boutiques, but also stores that are a little bit less expensive. Never mentioned it. Mentioned the one store, mentioned that I could go there, that it was closed on Sunday, and that was it. And so in that moment, if you're that guest, you walk away and you think, what? My thoughts were, first of all, he didn't really give me what I wanted. Second of all, he stopped being excited after that first moment, so he's not really connected with me. He tried to, he made that initial attempt where it was really exciting. I got excited and I said, this is going in the right direction. And then it all went away. And in the end, as I started talking to a friend of mine from the neighborhood, and she said, well, you know, there's that shopping center across the street. If you ever walk away from a concierge desk and your first thought is, I wish I would have known that concierge did not do their job. Because you need to go further into what the guest doesn't know they want, but you do because you're the expert, right? So these are the four, you know, initial aspects of the actual concierge experience, or what makes people happy, right? And these are some of the initial ones that are going to focus on, well, if we're going to make people happy, we're going to focus on what the guest wants and not what I know or what I want only, right? On a separate example, I did go to a separate experience that went in a very different way, and I'll show it to you in just a moment, or I'll share it with you in just a moment. But before that, I wanted to really focus on, why is it so important that a concierge have the best possible type of experience? Why do guests even go to seek a concierge? In today's era, every single traveler travels with one of these. Every single one has an iPhone or a smartphone or some sort of phone where you can go at the touch of a screen onto Google Maps and say, search surrounding area, and it shows you everything in the area, right? And in that particular moment, what is in it for the guest to then go seek a concierge? Because one thing that we really have to think about is that there is one more thing more valuable than money or any type of wealth, and that is people's time. People's time is something you can never give them back. I really wish I was watching Looney Tunes with my 11-year-old nephew a couple of days ago, and they have their rewind button where they go back in time. We can't do that. And because we can't do that, we have to focus on this. For them is more than just an investment to, you know, get the right information from you. It is an investment of their time. And that is why you have to be expert. And what does it mean to be expert? It means you have to be way better than Google. You have to give them something that the guest is going to know that you've lived it. You know it, you've experienced it, it matters to you. You know it's going to be the best for them. And that's really what it means to be expert. But the thing about it is, I know a lot of concierge are really expert, right? And you know your city, and you know it so well. And you know every single fact there is to know about every single restaurant, and every single activity, and every single shopping experience. But let me walk you through a little bit of this particular idea. In Miami Beach, I'm based in Miami now. This is where I currently live. And in Miami Beach, we also have a Faena hotel, kind of like you do in Argentina, right? Mr. Faena opened another outpost of a hotel here. And inside that hotel, we have Los Fuegos, which is their Argentinian restaurant. And all of you might have heard of this chef called Francis Mallman, and that restaurant is really great. They actually do a Sunday brunch where they have this parrillada, where they do all these grilled items, and at least before the pandemic, right? And they walk you through the menu, and the menu is really extensive, and they talk about who Francis Mallman is, and it's a really well-lit, really grand dining room that is decorated in a very classic fashion, almost like the rest of the Faena hotel. It has the golds and the big lamps and crystal everywhere, and you know, the big heavy chairs, and it's loud, but there's good music playing, and The food is really traditional to him, so everything's grilled, and it's grilled in 3 different ways. You can either grill it above the fire, on the fire directly, or on the coal, and so it really depends on which type of ingredient it is, how he grills it, and the price can range into something where you can pay about $50 to $80 per person without beverages and without tax and without tip. It is one of the most expensive cocktails in Miami, but they're really good cocktails. Cocktails can range probably around $40 to $50 a person, so you can add that to your bill. And afterwards you can go outside and enjoy the view. They have this really great big mammoth covered in gold. And how many of you remember everything I just said? Right? Because we are experts. We know all of this information. But we have to remember that we know it because we've studied it. We've probably been there. We've probably experienced it. We can talk about it. But for the guest, this might be their first time. The other thing is, you don't just want to give the guest one option. Because if you give the guest one option, and let's say that you give my twin sister this particular option, and she happens to be vegetarian, is this the best option for her? So because we're usually going to give this guest 3 options, right? It's, 2, it's hard to decide. 3 is the tiebreaker. We give them 3 options. We have to give them enough information, but not too much. Now, on the right-hand side of the screen, you see a series of numbers. That is a telephone number. It is not my telephone number, so don't try calling it, right? But it is a telephone number here in Miami. I'm happy to give you mine, but this isn't it. And it is a telephone number here in Miami. And in most places in the world, telephone numbers range between 6 digits to 10 digits. And they're always divided into 2 to 3 numbers, up to 4 numbers at a time, right? Every time you see them written down, you see a few numbers and then a space, another few numbers and then a space, and another few numbers and then a space. Have you ever thought of why? The reason is the human mind can remember things better in small pieces. So I want you to think about your recommendations as a telephone number. You offer 3, and for each one of those 3, you have to offer 3 to 4 facts, because that's as much as a guest will remember. But those 3 to 4 facts have to be the best possible 3 to 4 facts. So what do you want to talk about in that case? In that case, you want to talk about, if it's a restaurant, the type of food, the environment, and what really makes it special. The one thing you know that Google doesn't know. That's always going to be the third thing. If it's a shopping center, it could be the same thing. It could be, for instance, you're going to give them the type of store, the price range of the stores, and the one thing that you know that Google doesn't know, right? And for activities, it's what the activity is, how long it's going to last, and the one thing that Google doesn't know. And in a lot of the times, and I'm Colombian, I was born and raised in Bogota. One of the things that I remember asking Lucas when I was first going to go to Rio, I said to him, is it safer for me to take an Uber or a taxi? Because as a Colombian, the first thing I think is it safe for me to go walk by myself in this city where my Portuguese did get better at the time. It's really bad again, but it wasn't something where I was the expert Portuguese speaker, no, right? So which one is safer for me? And that's the one thing that we really want to think of. We want the guest to walk out of there saying, I'm glad they told me what they did because that changed my experience, right? I'm glad that I went there because it made the difference. Instead of saying, I went to a whale watching tour when I was in Cabo and nobody told me that I needed to take insect repellent. And you're standing there and you're getting bit by all the mosquitoes and you come back and you say, I wish they would have told me I needed insect repellent, right? Because you would know that, but the guest doesn't. So in every single thing that you're recommending, you think about it like a phone number. 3 different recommendations with 3 to 4 important facts about each one of the recommendations. And that is something that the guest is going to be able to remember. But then there's another piece to it, that if we go back to what we were just talking about when I was telling you, well, you know, we really want to focus on the guest being able to savor the experience the best possible way. And we also want to give them that little bit of an act of kindness. We want to go one step beyond where they could go. One thing that they haven't asked us for. We don't just want to give them what they came for, because Google could have potentially given them that. We want to do more for them. And we want to go one step further than what they've told us and give them that little bit of an act of kindness. And for every single thing that the guest is going to ask you for, you're going to be able to give them an act of kindness. So I went to New York and I was visiting my sister. She had just moved to a new house. And I went to the concierge at another 5-star hotel. And I said, can you tell me where I can get my sister a housewarming gift? And he said, well, what kind of gift are you looking for? And I said, I don't know. She just moved, so she really doesn't have anything. So maybe a gift card of some, you know, houseware place, and maybe some flowers or something to take for her. So he gave me this one recommendation to go to this shopping center that was nearby. And then in that particular moment, he said to me, you know what? While you're there, the flowers you're going to get on the first floor, the houseware store is right next door to it. But if you go up to the second floor, there's a paper store where they make really beautiful cards. And if you want to be able to gift her a card as well, they give you that. And they also can wrap the present for you if you wanted it wrapped. Now, I didn't ask him for that. But he thought, you know what? If you give a gift, you sometimes give a card. And he thought about it for me. And he gave me that little bit extra that I didn't know. When I returned to the hotel a few hours later, he looked at me and he said, did you find what you were looking for? And I said, yes, thank you. And he said, you know, what did you end up buying? And he really got into it with me. The next day when he saw me, he asked me if my sister had liked her gift. So the social connection from this particular person went way beyond anything that I had ever asked for. And all I did was ask him, where can I buy her a present? And he actually cared enough to first find out about, what does she normally like? What kind of gift do you want to get her? How much do you want to spend? All of these different things, but he made it matter. It wasn't just asking it so that he knew what best place to send me. It's New York City. You know how many places I could have gone to in New York City? But it was more about how to make that experience connect to me. And that's really what the social connection is really about. And focusing on the concierge going a little bit beyond what the guest is really asking for. So gratitude is a powerful catalyst for happiness. It's the spark that lights a fire in your soul. The reality is that when you invest your time into spending time with somebody, you want them to feel, or you want to feel like you matter, like your time is valuable. So one of the most important things is how that person actually treats you as a guest. And it's not just for the guest to say thank you to you. The guest made an investment. You're going to be there whether that guest walks up to you or not, because that's your job, right? You enjoy your job and that's fantastic, but you're going to be there whether they come to you or not. But they're making an investment of their time. They're taking time out of their day where they could be shopping, they could be relaxing, they could be with family, they could be doing anything. And they're choosing to invest it in having a conversation with you because they have trust in you. And the idea of going back to these 4 points of happiness is that that shows the trust that you build and you establish with them as well. When I was in Sao Paulo, I was there for 6 weeks and I was working a lot. And it wasn't only until the last week we were having a conversation about this. And I said to Lucas, I said, you know, I wish I could have gone to eat around more places because I love food. And he said, well, I can tell you where to go. And I said, where were you 6 weeks ago? And he says, no, I'll make it up to you. So in that moment, there were 3 of us who had come, one from Canada and 2 of us from Miami to help with the opening. And it was our last weekend, all of us there. And he said, well, what is it that you like to eat? And my response to him was food. So I was one of the most difficult people because I really love food, and I had already gone to have Japanese food, and I had already gone to have a few other items, but I was like, I just want to go somewhere that doesn't exist anywhere else, that's going to give us a great experience, because Romulo, one of the other people who was there, was also a food person. And he said to me, because I had spent one of the Jewish holidays there and I took the day off for it because I was Jewish, he said to me, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. He said, do you eat pork? I said, absolutely, I do. I'm a really bad Jew. And he said, okay, I know exactly where I want you to go. But then he took it to a different level. And he said, well, if you don't mind, can I take you all there? I was like, yeah. He's like, can we make it an experience? And I said, yes. I don't think I've eaten that much in such a long time. Like, I couldn't eat for like 2 days after that. We ate so much. We went to a Casa do Porco, which was fantastic. I would go there again and again and again. Had the 12-course meal. But before that, because we were waiting, we went to the little window around the corner that I wouldn't have known of had he not known about it. We went to a bar nearby. Then we went for ice cream, yes, before the food, because there's always time for ice cream. And then we went and had the food. And then I wanted to die, right? But the experience was so special, not because of the fact that it's a really wonderful restaurant where I would want to eat again. What made it really impactful was this was an experience where all of a sudden it became an entire experience where the waiting of a restaurant, where sometimes you can be waiting there and be a little bit, you know, annoyed or hungry or just, why is it taking so long? It didn't feel like anything because there was the drink, because there was the other place, because it was a walking distance, because there was a little bit, you know, of a historic aspect to it. And all of it tied to things that he knew I had done because we had talked about it. I had told him, oh, I went on this historic walking tour and I went on the tour of the different, of the murals, and we went to a soccer game one day. That was pretty crazy. And all of these things that were about the culture, that ice cream is amazing. And all of those things, it actually became a really impactful experience. It wasn't anything we asked for. All we asked was, can you recommend somewhere for us to go that we should not miss before we leave? And yes, it was made better by the fact that he was there, but he didn't even have to be there. As a guest, you don't even have to be there, because it's just knowing how to navigate all of it and saying, first you go and put your name down, and while you wait, right around the corner, you can have a little bit of an appetizer. If you go around the across the street on the other side, on the bottom, there's this bar, and you know, all of these things that really made it an experience that was a lot more than any of us could have asked for. And the one girl who came with us, she actually texted me a few days ago and said, do you remember the name of that restaurant? I said, of course, absolutely I do, because that experience was custom built to create an experience for us, just for us, that really focused on who we were and why it mattered. And the social connection was strong enough to where 2 years later, we're able to have this conversation because of an experience that was created at that moment in time. So really, being a concierge is about focusing on the guest and focusing on the guest first, whether or not you like what they're going to say. Because when I went to Malaysia for the first time, I went to the concierge and I said, I have one day to explore, just one day. What should I do? And I knew that there was an actual Buddhist temple nearby where you had to take a cable car. And admittedly, I'm terrified of cable cars, but I always go on them. And this one was even more terrifying because it had a glass bottom cable car. It was really terrifying. But he said to me, well, you can go to the casino. And I said, no, I don't want to go to the casino. I don't want to gamble. I just, something to do outside. Like, tell me about the temple. And he's like, oh, well, you need to take a cable car. And I was like, great. I'm like, so do they take credit cards? And he goes, yes. How do I get to the cable car? These hotels are connected to an actual shopping center. It's a maze. It's so confusing. I was lost for about 2 hours trying to find it. At one point he says, do you want me to take you there? I said, sure. So he starts taking me there and he's like, oh, this is a really great food court. It has all the food from Malaysia. You can eat lunch here if you'd like. And I was like, oh, that's great. He's like, okay, so I'll leave you here. And he walked away. And I didn't want to eat there right now. It was on the way to where I was supposed to go, which is why I was lost for 2 hours, only to get to the place for them to tell me, I'm sorry, we do not take credit cards. And then I had to go back to my room and get my ATM and go to the teller machine and go to and it changed the entire experience of what could have been a beautiful experience. And all it was, oh, because the casino's right there. And if you don't want to go to this casino, you can go to this other casino. And the next day I asked him, I said, why? And he said, oh, because, it's just what's easiest for us to walk you. We can walk you to each one of the casinos because it's easier. And he said, well, it doesn't matter what you want. It matters what the guest is there to do. It matters what's important to the guest. And if the guest is saying, I don't want to do that, you can't just leave it at, well, that's what's more convenient for me, right? You have to go back to, what did you learn about them? How can you connect about it? If you don't know about it, ask questions. If you do know about it, make a statement. Do something, make the guest feel special. Once that guest is feeling special, then you take them through, the telephone number, the 3 options with the 3 or 4 different facts, something that's better than Google. You give them that little act of kindness where you push them into something more, and then the guest is going to walk away and never go anywhere else. And that is why, even having worked for 4 seasons, and I absolutely love 4 seasons, please believe me, every time I go to Bogota, I would rather stay at the Sofitel. And it is because I visited the Sofitel at one point in time in Bogota, and I worked at the one in Cartagena, so it's not the hotel I used to work in. But I went there for my birthday, and my father is buried in a cemetery there, but I had not been to Bogota in about 15 years. So I didn't know my way around. And they knew that I was going to go there to visit my dad. And on the morning that I was going to go, they had a car waiting for me. They had found directions on how to get there. They had told the driver they had to wait for me there so that I wouldn't have to call another car to come back. And because I'm Jewish, they knew that I needed to stop somewhere else before going straight to the hotel. So they had planned a stop for me where I could get some of the childhood candy my father used to buy for me. How they found out all of this information, I can't really recall. I must have said it to somebody at some point, but they took enough care to be able to arrange it for me. And that is worth more than anything anybody else could ever do. And it doesn't matter how many new hotels open and how many more luxurious brands open or anything like that. Once they have your heart, you will never go anywhere else. And that hotel would probably have to close down, or that those people who are there would have to leave before I would go to any other hotel, right? So this is really what makes a huge difference. This is really what being a concierge is about. And this is what's going to make the investment of a person's time worth any part of the experience. so that you can really focus on more. But that means that if somebody is as annoying as me and you say, well, what kind of food are you looking to eat? And their response is food. You have to, at that point, do more to find out what kind of experience. If you know I like every single kind of food, then maybe it's what atmosphere. Is it something loud? Is it something fun? Is it something, you know, maybe it's where have you already been so that you can do something different. But there has to be more. You can't just say, somebody comes up and says, I like for dinner recommendations, and you just shoot out the first 3 that come to your mind. Because then it's not about you. Maybe it's about what part of the city have you already been to? Have you explored all the different parts of the city, right? And sending them to a different part of the city. And all of that becomes impactful. So that is really what you really need to focus on, is making that social connection with the guest, narrowing it down to being able to get enough information about them to give them not just 3 random recommendations, the best 3 that are going to fit their exact need, right? It's the best 3 in that moment because they're not going to remember more than 3. So if you give them 5, or you give, and you know, that's not going to be helpful. It's too much. If you give them just 1, like the bridal boutique, and in that particular case, it wasn't even what I was looking for. What if it was what I had been looking for, and I go and I don't find anything I like? Then that guest has nothing else to go by, right? So we always want to do more than 1. And because sometimes choosing between 2 is hard, we do 3, the tiebreaker. And we don't want to do more because it's too much and it's too confusing. And if you have to say to the guest, well, I can write the name for you so you can look it up online, then basically the guest could have done that without having had spent that time with you, that investment of something they cannot get back. And you didn't give them something that shows that you're really an expert, that you really know, that you've lived it, that you are the best source of information for that, right? So that's really the actual impactful part, is if you really focus on what makes a person happy. As a concierge, you have the tools to touch upon every single one of the things that is going to impact a person's happiness. And if you do it correctly, you will always have a happy guest. But now, in these times, there's an added expectation. And it is that you have to know all of the information. And right now, with so much information changing, that is very difficult. When I went to Cartagena to visit right after I had left the hotel, I was talking to one of the concierge, and a guest came up to the other one. And Cartagena is like 40 degrees Celsius. It's very humid. And the concierge desk is open air, so it's not air conditioned. And this guest came from the outside from walking, and he's sweating, and he walks up to the concierge and he puts his hand down on the desk and looks at her, gets right in her face this close and says, "This is the second time you send me to that museum and the door is closed." And he shows her a photograph that the museum is closed. And she says, "Well, but I looked it up." And he says, no, it's the second time I go there, walk all the way there to find it closed. So you can tell me you looked it up, but you didn't. And in that moment, that trust the guest had, and he gave her a second chance, was completely gone. And in times right now, in Miami, for instance, we had a restaurant that about a week ago reopened because places are starting to reopen. But then here things, I'm sure you've seen the news, are insane and crazy, and people are getting really sick again. And so the owner of the restaurant decided it wasn't worth risking the health of her employees, and she decided to close again. And if a guest is going to a concierge and they don't know that information, and that guest drives all the way to that hotel, to that restaurant, and the restaurant is closed, they're not going to be happy. Additionally, there's another aspect of it, which is there's a lot of requirements. In the state of Florida right now, for instance, the requirement is that you have to wear a mask. And you can only take your mask off while you're eating, right? But if a guest doesn't know that and they arrive to the restaurant and they're not wearing a mask, they're not going to be allowed in, right? And so there's a lot of information just almost on a regular basis. We have to know it too. We have to know whether it's safe for somebody to take an Uber, whether it's safe for somebody to walk in the neighborhood, or whether, you know, there's a special dress code if somebody needs a jacket to get in somewhere, or long pants. It happens a lot here in Miami where they'll say, well, you can't wear shorts, right? And we'll have people show up to restaurants in shorts and then get all upset because whatever concierge didn't tell them that they needed to wear pants, right? All of this information is changing a lot, and there's an expectation that you don't have to know it all, but you have to be able to source it. And so there are certain things that you now need to have in consideration, and those are, before sending a guest somewhere, is the restaurant open? Or is the business open? Did the hours of operation maybe change? Are they only seating outside? Because like in certain states, like Massachusetts, at first, you could only be seated outside. And if somebody doesn't like the heat and it's summertime, well, then they're not going to be satisfied eating outside, right? So all of these different things, as we start getting back into how we do work, one of the most impactful added expertise pieces are going to be about the guest and their safety and what they can expect out of that place. Are they going to take their temperature before they walk in? Some restaurants are saying, okay, so we seat you outside, or if you want to dine inside, you have to get a temperature taken with the thermometer, laser thermometer on your forehead, or anything like that. All of these aspects are going to be impactful as we start to move forward into slowly reopening in different countries and different cities in different speeds and different ways. So that's going to be something that for the foreseeable future will be an additional piece of information to try to identify and find out and know and share. So that is, funny enough, an hour. So I want to give you a chance to ask me questions or ask any questions that you have.
Thank you so much for those thoughts, Vivian. I think no matter if you're a chief concierge with like 10 years at Play Door, or if you're a regular concierge applying to the keys, I think it was really powerful. And to remember what we do every day, be outside of the desk on a daily basis. I think everybody that wears the keys, we miss to use the student's eye with the keys. I think it's nice to hear all the stories that you share with us, to remember what we do every day. So it's really nice.
I miss wearing my pin. This is the first time I wear real clothes in 4 months. So thank you very much for allowing me to wear real clothing. I'm actually wearing like a skirt. I'm completely dressed. I'm not only dressed from the half up.
Yeah, some of the members, they share that they were sick and tired of wearing pajamas, and they were happy to wear like a dress, a student size. So it's really cool.
My brother's the one who said to me, oh, well, when I do meetings, I only wear my top half. I said, no, I'm wearing an entire outfit to everyone, like everything, even if you can only see my top half.
So before everybody starts to do all the questions, one thing that I would like to hear your opinion, how we can deal with wearing the mask, and guests, we can share our smiles with them. So
that's actually a really great question. And actually, if you allow me for a moment, I'm going to take one of my masks.
Yeah.
I should have had that near me. But so there's this idea that people can't see your smile, but the reality is that they can, right? if you're wearing a mask and you smile, you can see people's eyes as they smile, right? The other thing is, so in that moment, yes, you might have to speak a little bit more clearly because you get a little muffled, but you can always see somebody smile. The other thing with the mask that we have to consider is that the guest is likely going to feel more comfortable in that moment with you wearing a mask. The one thing though is that usually it's easy for us in this moment to get, look down at the computer screen or look down at the map or look down at something, and the guest is watching us smile. And in this particular occasion, if we're looking away, we're taking away every bit of contact that we can have with them. So it's going to be more important for us to almost guide the guest to what the next move is going to be. So if you're going to show them something on a computer screen or on a map, before you do that, just to take a moment to look them in the eyes and say, let me show you on the map, and then look down. Instead of making it so automatic, because now there's not that much of an ability for them to guess what your next move is going to be, right? But the smile also goes through on the tone of voice. If you're really just in a moment not smiling, if I'm not smiling and I'm talking to you, it's going to get really boring really quickly because you can hear it on somebody's tone of voice, right? So if you smile, you can actually hear the change in how somebody is going to speak to you, how passionate they are about something. And so even if they can't see the smile, they can see your eyes smile, they can hear your smile, they can feel how you're actually passing this along to somebody else. And that's really going to be the most important part of it, because one of the biggest things about being a concierge is you're for all intents and purposes, a salesperson of an experience. If you yourself are not passionate about what you're talking about, the guest is not going to be excited about it. If I tell you that after, flying for 43 hours, it took me 43 hours to get from here to Malaysia. The first thing that they asked me to do was go to the spa. And so I went to the spa and I had a really great massage, and they give you a really spicy ginger tea with a little jello, and then they take you into the steam room, and the massage was really, really great. It was 90 minutes. And then after that, they give you some more of that ginger tea and you walk away. And, the next 2 times I went back again because it was so good. Do you believe me?
Yeah.
Everything I said was completely true, but I don't sound excited about it. So do you really want to go to that spa right now, right? So the smile goes through in the voice. It reinforces the impact of what you're going to do with the guests. It actually makes it so that they trust you more. And, it's really going to focus on, giving them exactly what they want, which is that emotion behind it. And the mask will never hide that. The mask will never hide that passion and the smile in your tone of voice. And that is really, even when they can see your smile, the most impactful thing. Think about it this way. It doesn't change anything in the sense that how many times do you take care of a guest who calls you over the telephone? And in that case, they don't see your smile. So you almost have to treat them in that same way, in the way of pretend they're on the telephone and show them through your tone of voice and your excitement. And it's going to require you to maybe build a little bit more of that connection with them ahead of time, but it shouldn't change a little at all the actual functioning. Is it as comfortable? Maybe not. Maybe it's really not as comfortable. I had to take it off, especially because I talk a lot and I talk fast, right? So it's not always the most comfortable to wear for a long time, but it's something we all have to get used to, because our wearing a mask shows the guests we care for their safety. Because that's why we wear a mask, is to protect them and to protect ourselves, but to protect them, right? And it actually goes a little bit into the question of that they asked on the chat of saying, how do I think the pandemic will affect the objective of serving with excellence? And if anything, I think that it will make it a lot more impactful and better. And the reason is I believe that sometimes we get so used to just recommending what we know is good or what guests say is good. And for people who are in the job for a long time, if it's one of those really busy days where you get one guest and another guest and another guest and another guest, I can almost guarantee that after the 5th or 6th guest, you've probably recommended the same 2 or 3 places to every single guest. Because it's something that you already have in your, you know, area of this is what the guest is going to like. And as a concierge, you're going to be able to go in and say, well, if you'd like to stay nearby the hotel, I recommend this. And they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'd like to stay nearby the hotel because you just suggested that, right? You know, and so in that sense, I think that the pandemic, what it's going to do is it's going to force us to have to be on the top of our game and to really focus on what part of the experience is going to be most important to the guests. Are they really looking just for safety and convenience? You know, and if that's the case, and a lot of guests might be starting to order into hotels, and hotels might have to allow something that they usually don't allow, which is, you know, deliveries into the hotel, then where are they ordering from? How is it delivered? Is it something that needs to be reheated? Can you reheat it in the kitchen? Like, all of these different questions are going to come up. And I think that what it's going to do is that this pandemic is going to give us all the actual need to be constantly learning, constantly being attentive, looking at what other people are doing, looking more at the reactions of the guest. And I think that that's really what's going to make it even more impactful to show excellence, because excellence, who defines excellence? Excellence is defined by each separate person. What I may think is excellent, my identical twin sister won't. Like, we are identical. We are genetically identical, but I'll tell you what, when we go to a hotel together, she hates traveling with me because my sister is the kind of person, she's been living in New York for 22 years. So the more quickly you tell her something, the quicker you get to the point, the better it is. I will stand there and talk to you for hours, and you know that better than anyone, for hours. And my sister says, you know, leaving a hotel with you is really annoying because what would take 10 minutes to walk outside takes you 45 minutes because I stop and talk to everybody, right? So for me, what's going to be excellent service is a service where I feel cared for and special. For her, excellent service is somewhere where they bring her what she wants and leave her alone. So what defines excellence is basically how we care for the needs of each individual. And because there's so much more we need to worry about now, that's not just the enjoyment, but it's also the sense of safety and trust and all of these things. I think the pandemic is going to make us stronger at delivering this than, you know, we have been in the past. So
yeah, I think it's the same situation I think all of us already had on Uber. Like, if I get inside of the Uber, I don't want to speak. I put my headphones and then that's it. And then I have a lot of friends. They want to tell their stories and the driver likes to talk. So it depends for each one. And we can take not just the high service, like in the luxury business on the daily basis. Or like
exactly.
Uber,
Exactly.
Simple coffee, and then each one.
Exactly. So my sister, when she moved, she went from having her local coffee shop. She would walk into the coffee shop, and my sister, you know, that I don't know if you've seen in the United States, they sell these coffee cups that say, don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk to me now, you can talk to me. So once it's empty, that's my sister. If she hasn't had coffee, you don't want to go anywhere near her. And she had this coffee shop where she would go in the morning and grunt at the person, and they would hand her the coffee she liked and she would walk away. And now she moved to a new part of New York, but it's in the suburbs, it's outside the city. And the we went there. I went to visit her. I went there with her, and she's like, I hate this coffee shop. And I'm like, why? And she's like, he always wants to talk to you. I don't want to talk. I just want him to give me my coffee. And she hates going there. She won't. So now she makes coffee at home because she can't stand the Italian guy who wants to talk to her, you know? And so it's something a little bit different.
Total sense. And then I think we have already a question for you. One of the members, what are the perspectives for the new hiring training process post COVID-19 outbreak? If it's going to be a full digital process from now on. I know that you're not in the business of hospitality, but what are your thoughts?
It's going to be dependent on every single person. One of the things that I have found, and this is just in the time that, you know, we've been going through this, and I'll give you an example with my nephews. My nephews are 11 and 9, and my oldest nephew, at one point, it was his birthday two days ago, and I called him on FaceTime, and at the same time, my sister had FaceTimed him from New York. And so there's the two of us and all that stuff. And he looked at me and he looked into the phone and he says, look, I love you, but honestly, he's like, I hate being on FaceTime. This is all I do all day, right? I'm always on Zoom for school. I'm always on FaceTime. Like, he's like, if you can come play with me, I'll play with you. But if not, I don't want to be on the phone with you. And so, yes, there's part of it that I think is going to be more automated. There are hotels are now moving into like the check-in online, and you scan a QR code to get the in-room dining menu so that it's not, you know, there and disgusting and with bacteria and all these things. And I think that there's technology that's going to work. Like for me, if I can scan a QR code or access an in-room dining menu on a television, more power to it, more trees saved, I'm happy to do that. But there are certain aspects that are not replaceable. And if it was all meant to be done digitally, your job wouldn't exist, because Google Maps and Google in general does the job of a concierge, quote unquote, but people still seek you out because you are people, because the interaction matters, because your opinion, because of how you make them feel. And in certain aspects, there are things that could potentially be done digitally, but it's not going to give the same type of feeling. And yes, I think that in the short scheme of things, yes, a lot of things are going to have to be digital, in the sense that right now it is not the safest and we don't want to put people at risk. But do I think that that's going to be the entire long run? No, I don't. And part of the reason that I don't is because it's not natural. I was watching, there's this, I don't know if you've ever watched The Daily Show in the United States, but
yeah,
it used to be Jon Stewart, and now it is Trevor Noah. And Trevor Noah the other day was interviewing Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart kept looking at the screen to look at Trevor Noah, and he said, no, don't look at me, look at the camera. And he said, what? He says, you're looking at me, but if you're looking at me, it doesn't look like you're looking at the audience. So you can't look at me, because then you're looking down. You have to look at the camera. And that's the reality. The reality is, if I look at you, I'm not looking at you. Don't see me looking at you. I'm looking at you, right? But it feels awkward and strange. And how do you think a guest is going to feel to be talking at the little lens of the camera instead of sitting in front of a person and talking to them? Or, you know, so is it going to be in the training and everything? Can we do it digitally? Potentially. I mean, we're doing it right now. And to be fair, if we weren't doing it this way, this wouldn't be happening, because right now I live in Florida and you are all in different places. So this can only happen because it's digital. But is it going to be like that as a general rule? I really can't say it's going to be a complete general rule of that. And I think that we should never underestimate the power of your connection with the guest. And I do believe that guests are going to be missing that, and they're going to long that, and they're going to want that once this is over.
Right? Yeah. I think definitely will be a game changer once all hotels are opening. How they're going to adapt with technology.
Exactly.
So just to get like on the same line of thought that you're mentioning, can you give any tips for our members that maybe the hotel have a technology or still don't use WhatsApp to talk to a guest? Maybe it's a small chain, maybe it's a small luxury hotel that doesn't have an app or something like that. Of course,
Certainly, and that's great. A lot of hotels do have apps, like Four Seasons I know has an app. I know that Sofitel was also moving to have an app. If you don't have an app, that's fine. You would want to, I know that when I went to the St. Regis in Punta Mita, for instance, the butler asked me, would you like to be connected with me via WhatsApp? And when I went to St. Regis in Puerto Rico, they did the same thing. They said, would you like to be connected with me via WhatsApp? And the one thing that I do encourage is not to use your personal phone, in the sense that if you're then not at the hotel, the guest should know exactly who to contact, how to contact them. So if there's a shared phone for the concierge that has that, I would recommend that. And that way, if you're not on schedule today, somebody else is, they have that phone, and the guest will always have someone who's responding to their requests in that particular format. The other thing is that communicating with a person digitally should still be respectful and formal. Now, that doesn't mean that every single sentence has to begin with good evening, right? If you've said good evening and you're going back and forth, you've said it, you're done. But I wouldn't use text message language, any type of abbreviation. I would be very careful about initiating using emojis. I think we need to not be as familiar. If a guest uses an emoji with you, or if a guest uses text message language, they're the guest, they can do that. But we should still be respectful and formal like we would if we were talking to them in person. So yes, I think that you can do WhatsApp. I think that you can do email. I think that really it's a matter of how you're going to really focus on giving them the best possible experience as a continuation of the service that you deliver in person on the phone or on that app in that particular moment. And
Vivian, I'm sorry, Vivian?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Esperanza from Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Leclerc Brazil, for the invitation. One of the key of the concierge already sent the messages that we are the ambassadors of the city, and we have the power to recheck every place outside the hotel that it will be secure and safe for the guests, because I can imagine how will be the guests going to foreign cities after the pandemic, and they will be scared and they will be like insecure with a lot of stress. So I think the concierge is the key in each hotel to protect them and to give them the secure that they might need in the city that they are visiting.
And that's a great idea, but also that's a lot of work. If you're going to go to every single place, I think that that's the really great thing about being a concierge, is that you more than anyone have a huge network of other concierge. And if you can divide and conquer with the concierge from different hotels in the city, and you go to some and the next person goes to some, I know that the idea is that some places have better or higher expectations than others, but it's factual. It's going to a place and saying, this place requires masks, they require that you do this, this is how the service was, and it's a fact. And if you can do that and then share it all together, I think it's probably a more doable aspect, because think about, as a concierge right now, how long it took you to discover all of these places in the first place as a concierge. It took you years. And the reality is you don't have the time or the ability to go back to all of these places as they start to open, and then they open and then they change things. You know, here in Miami, there was another place that opened, and then one of their servers tested positive, so they closed it, and then they tested all the staff, and then they cleaned, and then they reopened it. And it's like, you know, you're not going to be able to keep up with all of it. And so, though I think it's great, I also think that in that particular moment, you can also be honest with the guest and say, I myself have been to this place since the pandemic, and this is what I know, and, you know, do that. But I think that that's the thing about being a network of concierge like you have with Clarior, is that you can divide and conquer and be able to do that a lot around the city and have that. So I think if you can do that way, that would surely be wonderful. If not, then you at least have to be able to telephone the restaurant or the business and find out what is it that you're doing, what are the expectations, how many people are you allowing in, do they have to wait in line, do they have to wait outside? Different types of businesses are going to have different requirements. But yes, if you can do that, more power to you. That would be phenomenal.
Thank you.
There's someone who says, I think that serving excellence to the guest is an effort to the entire hotel staff. So I want to know how to lead the staff members to be part concierge. So the reality is that what you want to get out of the experience for the guest is you want the guest to have a knowledgeable experience that is going to make them feel confident about the service that you're delivering. So in order to make everybody an expert, what you're going to have to do is show them where to find out the information, create a resource for them to be able to find out information. So if that's a new directory that you create with these are the businesses, this is what you're doing, and they have access to it on the computer or anywhere where they can look it up, that would be great. But it's really simple in the sense of saying, you have to build the social connection. You have to focus on the act of kindness and giving them more than they asked you for. You have to focus on showing the guest gratitude for being there, especially during the times of a pandemic. It's huge that there are people willing to still travel and, put themselves at risk. So show them that gratitude. And you also want to make sure that you are really focused on building that connection. And then it's simple. It's letting them know it's a telephone number. They have to offer 3 things with 3 to 4 details each. And one of those details has to be something Google doesn't tell them. And really that's what's going to make them the best type of asset or addition to your team, especially during a time in which you might be working with a smaller team of people initially, and you're going to have to rely potentially on people who are not expert concierge. But in order to do that, the easiest way is creating a type of resource where they can find out this information, right? So if, for instance, I am sending somebody to, and I'll use Neto because I ate there and did all of the standard testing for that. So I know that the cuisine there is Brazilian Italian. It's a combination of the Italian roots of the chef with the local ingredients and the local flair. It is all house made and house prepared, even all the way from the bread to the desserts. The actual ambiance, it's a modern environment. It's spacious. There's a second level, and people, it gives you enough space, even on non-pandemic times. It's spaced out enough so that you can have enough privacy, but it's active. And I can give you that information. And if you have that about this particular restaurant and you say to the people and you create that as like Neto located at the Four Seasons in Sao Paulo, and this is their, atmosphere and this is their cuisine, then you're going to be able to give them something additional that Google might not be able to tell them. And it might be to have the pasta that is, a twist or a, twist on the feijoada, or, that is delicious and house-made. And you can do that. And that's something Google doesn't tell them. They don't say, this is what dish I recommend that you eat, or save room for dessert because the pastry chef there is incredible and, you're going to have a really great experience, or anything that the guest might not know. Or even if you like a great place for a picture, you can go under the staircase and it's a really beautiful place for a picture. All of these things are things that Google might not tell you about that place. And if you can come up with a directory that has that information, that another team member can say, oh, let me recommend something, allow me to look some options up for you. Nobody says the concierge has to know it all immediately. You just have to be able to source the information. Now, because you're expert and you do it for a long time, you get to and this is what you do. I'm sure you get to know all of these places without having to look them up. But remember, go back to your first day as a concierge.
Yeah.
And at that moment, you needed to look things up. And remember that that is where this other person is right now. So if you can create the resources, especially now that as we start to work, it might be a little bit slow at work. I recommend also that you're a network of concierge, do the same thing, divide and conquer. You take the ones in your neighborhood, somebody else takes the ones in your neighborhood, and then you pull them all together. And if you want to add additional facts that you like to share, then do that. But don't each of you start creating it from zero, because that's a lot of work. That's why there's
like
a
do a
network
top 20, a top 10, like we do like on Valentine's Day, on Christmas, that we share, that each team does that thing.
Exactly. And these are important things, because in those moments, those are moments in which restaurants all do something special. And we also have to remember, for instance, I travel always on Memorial Day weekend, except for this year because there's a pandemic. But Memorial Day weekend in Miami is awful. There's a really huge music festival that destroys the city, and I hate being here. So I always go away on Memorial Day weekend. In Colombia, Memorial Day weekend is nothing. It's not a holiday, right? But when you look at the different places have different things. In Canada, Thanksgiving is in October. In the United States, Thanksgiving is in November. So if I go to Canada on October 11th, and I'm going to go out to dinner, and they have a special menu, and the concierge doesn't tell me that, and I'm not Canadian and I don't know that, I'm going to get to that restaurant and the experience is not going to be great, because it's not going to be what I expected. I may end up having to eat off of a predetermined menu or anything like that, and it's not going to be the same experience. So just like you would update different things on special occasions like that, you want to be able to update the
Me estás matando a mi manito.
the everyday life and do it that way. So it says, having worked for different hotel chains and having traveled extensively, do you recognize a clear spirit or fingerprint from the different brands? Yes, I do, and it's dependent on the brand. Sofitel is very much focused on food. A lot of their fingerprint is focused on food experiences, and they do a very good job at connecting the local into the food. And that's something that they're known for. It's what their rituals are based on. They also have a lot of their rituals that become part of what they do, where they light their candles every night at sundown, or they, shine their plaques, and they do all these things. And these are events that become part of what you recommend to the guest. And so they have that in Auberge, for instance. I've been traveling to Auberge a lot lately, and their focus is also on the local, but from a nature point of view. So when I went to the 2 Auberge resorts in Cabo during whale watching season, it was all about the whales. I had binoculars in my room, because in the morning you can see the whales from your room jumping out of the water, right? And when I go to Auberge in Utah, in the middle of the mountains, they have binoculars because there's a lot of bird watching. And in the winter, they give you all of these, like, they're focused more on the outdoor sports. And yes, they focus on the food, and the food is all local and sustainable. So it's fish that's sustainably caught. And so each single brand has their own way of distinguishing themselves. With Four Seasons, the idea is that they want you to be able to disconnect. So they try to do whatever it takes to create each space into an experience, so that you don't feel like you're still working. The idea is that you're like disconnecting and creating a new experience. And each hotel does it a little bit differently. How we talk about it, or how people talk about it, is also based on how well they know their product, how passionate about it they are, how they focus on the particular guiding of the guest. For me, concierge are the people who decide what a guest is going to do, where they're going to eat, when they're going to do it, and how they're going to do it. And if you're really passionate about your job, you have that ability to do that because people have that blind trust in you, and you know your material well enough to be able to get to that part. And so the idea is, does the service of the concierge change within each of these brands? And the answer is it shouldn't. And it shouldn't because the concierge should still offer and want to offer the same things, which is offering the guest that those 3 options with those 3 to 4 pieces of information, and then something unexpected, something that they're not going to know. Right? And so in that particular moment, that's really what becomes the most important of it all, is to focus on, it doesn't matter which brand you're representing. What matters is that you really focus on that social connection with the guest, and that you really focus on that act of kindness, because getting something unexpected is more than anything I could ever ask for. When I walked into the Sofitel in Rio, and at that point in time, you know, it was something like, I ended up going there because Sylvia, who's the learning manager there, and I worked together when I worked for Sofitel, and I made my reservation through her. I didn't expect to find an amenity sent to me by my concierge at the Four Seasons in Sao Paulo. But I did, and I didn't expect it. And it was really important to me because, you know, knowing that Lucas was from there, I said, well, where should I go? I have literally 1.5 days in Rio. Like, that's not enough time. And I need to pack it all in. And I went with the one girl who traveled with me from Canada, and the 2 of us, we left. That was a scary landing into the airport in Sao Paulo. But we went there, and, you know, he had given us the recommendations, and he recommended which one of the concierge we should talk to when we got to Rio, and connected us with a tour guide, and we went to all these places and we did all these things. But then the additional unexpected was cared enough to be able to say, I want to welcome you to my city, and that wasn't expected. And it doesn't matter which brand you represent, because what matters is that in that moment, as a concierge, you're representing that guest, and you're becoming part of that guest's family, for a certain way of saying it. You're becoming part of what that guest and who that guest is. And so, yes, the different brands have the different fingerprints, but it doesn't change the way that as a concierge, we would want to deliver the service. That should be a really universal format of caring and being able to impact the 4 aspects that impact people's happiness. So.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. You speaking about small touches, can you share with us the story about the kindness that you had at the airport taking a coffee?
Oh my goodness, yes, thank you for reminding me. So I was traveling from Miami to San Diego, so to California, and I had a layover. There wasn't a direct flight, so I had to stop in Phoenix. And it's about a 4-hour flight from here to Phoenix, and then it was like a 2-hour flight from Phoenix to San Diego. I had 3 hours in between. But I was delayed for 9 hours in Phoenix airport. Now, the Phoenix airport is possibly one of the worst airports ever. There is absolutely nothing. It is gigantic, and there is nothing, and it is full. And so I started walking around all of this different, like the airport, just because I was like, what are you going to do? You can't sit there for 9 hours, and you've already been sitting for 4, and you have to sit for 2 more on the airplane, right? And so at that moment, I decided that I would focus on just walking around. And at one point, I decided that I was going to stop at the coffee shop. And the funny thing about that coffee shop is the name of the coffee shop is a Refuge Coffee Shop, which is hilarious because that's exactly what I needed, was refuge. I was so bored in that entire airport. And I walked up, and there was this young lady, Annabella, and I walked up to her and I said, may I please have, an almond milk latte, medium or whatever. I don't remember what it was. And she said to me, sure, can I get the payment? So I gave her the payment, I gave her my credit card, and she looked at my name on my credit card. And she said, well, Miss Lieberman, where are you traveling from? I was like, did I give her my name? That moment, I couldn't even focus on the fact that she had my credit card and that's how she had my name, right? And I said, oh, I'm traveling to San Diego. And she's like, oh, and do you live here? And I said, no, actually, I've been delayed for 9 hours. I came from Florida. She said, oh my goodness, you had to have left really early. I said, yes, I left my house at 3:30 in the morning. I'm really tired. And so she said, well, I'm going to focus on making this the best coffee that you've ever had. And that way we can maybe make this experience amazing for you. And I said, well, thank you very much. And she says, yes, you have to really focus on people here are always going everywhere. They're always in a hurry. So if I can do whatever it takes to make your day better, I'm going to do that. She says, if you don't mind, I'm going to make your coffee on this side. Would you mind walking around? So I walked around and she asked me, why are you traveling to San Diego? And, have you been there before? And we got into conversation and all of these things. And then she said, well, you know what? Thank you very much for stopping by. And if you end up flying through on the way back, be sure to come and say hello and let me know how your trip was. And I was at a coffee shop in the airport. And I walked away from there and I went to my gate. And there was the gate agent on American Airlines who was really annoying. So I walk up to him and I say, excuse me, they switched my flight because the other flight was canceled and I need a new ticket. Can you print me out a ticket? Because I can't use an electronic ticket. My name is too long, so it won't let me. And so he said, I don't understand what you need. And I said, well, I was just switched onto this flight. I need a new ticket because it doesn't take my e-ticket. And he goes, I need you to wait. And he walks away from me and he comes back and he starts taking care of other people. And about 5 people later, I walk up to him and I said, excuse me. And he goes, may I help you? As if he had never seen me. So I said again, oh, I'm sorry. I was changed onto this flight and I need a new ticket. Can you print me a ticket? And he says, I don't understand. And I said, I don't know how else to explain it to you. This is my ticket from my other flight. I need one for this flight because this flight was canceled. And he grunts and gives me a ticket, I walk away, and up comes another person and says, oh, I'm on standby for this flight. And the guy looks at the passenger. There's a screen that shows that there's 10 seats open for standbys, and there are 2 people on the standby list. There's 10 seats open, 2 people on the standby list. And he says, well, I can't give you that information until 6 minutes from now. In 6 minutes, I can tell you if you have a seat. I'm looking at this person. And so I decide that I'm going to walk back to the coffee shop. And I said, Annabella, I just wanted to say thank you. And she said, why? I said, because in an area of an airport where so many flights have been canceled today, you are the kindest person I've encountered. And thank you very much for making my day. And she says, well, just the other day we had a flight that was delayed so much until 2 in the morning. And I asked my manager if we could stay open because there were people wanting to drink coffee and wine. And so I decided to stay open for them. And as I turn around, she was talking to some other customer just the same way. It was like, and these people get yelled at day in and day out. So I went back to the American Airlines counter and I decided that I was going to show this gentleman that he was being unkind. And I was going to do it by showing him kindness. And I walked up to him and I said, thank you for all the work you do. I'm sure you've gotten yelled at a lot. I saw how many flights were canceled on the screen. And he goes, oh my goodness, yes. And he started talking to me. And I showed him care, and all of a sudden, he was a brand new person. And everything shifted. Because the one thing that we have to remember is that we don't know exactly what the person brings with them. All we know is what we can give to them. And when we give them kindness, it can take the worst of moods and make them into the best of moods. So about 3 months later, I traveled back through Phoenix, and I went back to the coffee shop, and I said hello to Annabella again. And, she said, how do you remember me? And I said, well, I know you see a lot of people every day, but as a person who travels, I was taking at one point about 20 to 30 flights a month. And we encounter one person like you, it's hard to forget them, right? And hopefully she won't be there because she found a better job, because she was getting yelled at a lot. But I also hope that she is there, because if I have to fly through there, which I do a lot when I go to Cabo, I want her to serve me my coffee. And she knew my name because she looked at my credit card. She never asked for it. But that's what baffles me sometimes about concierge. They'll ask you your room number. And I always question, why do you ask for a room number? Like, when was the last time somebody said, good afternoon, Mr. 503? Like, why a room number? Just ask somebody for their name. I know it's hard to spell and you're trying to look it up on the computer and it's easier to get the number than the name. But nobody wants to feel like they're a number. And, if you can get in opera, you type in the first three. Sorry?
No, you have a long last name, so you know how it feels.
Yeah, and I actually legally have two last names, right? Because I'm Colombian, so we use two last names. And my second last name is worse than my first. And nobody can ever pronounce it, so nobody ever calls me by my name. When I check in with both, they just call me either my first name or they just say Miss, and they don't. So, and then Mr. Smith walks by and everybody's like, Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith. And you're like, why is he important and I'm not? And it's just because my last name's Prescolman, right? So it's something different. So the one thing that she did that was so impactful is just she was taking the payment for my coffee. Like, how many times do you go to a coffee shop and you hand them a credit card and don't even think about it? And that's exactly what happened. And she just happened to look down at my name and use it. And if I had a hotel to hire her into, I would have.
Anyone have more questions to Vivian? I know that we can stay all day with her. Everybody's really excited. You can see in the inbox some questions.
Hi, Vivian.
Yeah. Hi.
I am Marco Bransford from Rio, from Bransford Rio Private Tours.
Let me interrupt. Marco is one of the members of Liquid do Brazil, just to let you know.
Oh, wonderful.
I would like to go back to the wearing a mask issue. Don't you think it's a great opportunity for us to sort of explore more other aspects of our communication with the clients, like eye contact, the pitch of our voice, the tone? I would like you to comment on that, please.
100%. I think that really that's connected. And a lot of the times when we tend to get busy, we don't realize that we forget to smile. And I think that what this mask is going to have to do is create the awareness that if we don't smile under that mask and if we don't pay attention to that communication, we're going to sound rude. And it's going to come across really crass and really rude and short, and the guest is not going to feel cared for. And in a time in which people want to feel safe and they want that feeling of safety, one of the most important things is to be able to show the guest that tone of voice and that smile in your voice and that feeling of feeling cared for. And so if you don't really focus on, now you have to give them that eye contact before you look away to do something else. If you don't give them that smile underneath that mask, that's going to show them in your eyes that you're smiling, and it's going to show them in your voice that you're smiling. The guest is going to feel like they're asking you to do them a favor. And that's not what it's about. We're here to actually show the guests care and really connect with them. And that connection is primarily done through the way that we build that trust and that feeling of safety and that feeling of care. And so that's why that social connection is so impactful. It's all about how we communicate through our body. It's the posture. It's the fact that I'm not sitting back like this when I'm talking to you. I'm sitting up, right? It's the fact that, you know, I'm looking at you, looking in your direction, that I'm waiting for you to finish talking before I look away. That, you know, I show that smile because it's in my voice, and it's going to feel like I really want you to experience this, but I also know that in experiencing it, you're going to be safe because we've done the research and we know it's going to be safe. And we're going to take care of you in the best possible way. And so it's really going to be, I really think that if we look at the wonderful silver lining of this pandemic, it has to give us a better connection with ourselves and who we are and how we present ourselves. And it's also going to show us exactly, as other guests, how people are going to receive us. Because if you really think about it, yes, I know that those of us in the hotel industry, we're much braver than some other people. I know people who the minute that restaurants opened, they went out and had dinner at a restaurant. I had, you know, coffee and lunch with a friend of mine the first day that a restaurant up the street allowed us to do so. And there's people who think I'm crazy because they say, why would you put yourself in that situation? And to a certain degree, they're right? To a certain degree, it's risky. But to a certain degree, we all look for that connection. And that's what makes us be hospitality professionals. And the people who are frequent travelers with us, they're also like that. They're the ones who are taking the risk, starting to travel to these hotels. But the reason they're picking that hotel or that business or that person to talk to is because they have trust in you. And if you don't focus even more precisely on how you come across to them, you're going to lose that trust and they're not going to feel like you care. And part of my investment of my time in speaking with a concierge is that Google doesn't really care. It's just going to give me basic information, but you care, or you should care, and that's why we seek out to actually talk to the person. So the mask is going to be a wonderful way to get us to really understand more of that connection with ourselves. We're going to have to focus more intently on how am I coming across? Can the people see my eyes smiling? Can they hear my smile? Can they feel the care? And really, I think that it's going to a lot of the times take practice. A lot of people laugh at me because when I drive to my mother's, I leave my mask on. And I'll be singing in the car or like talking to myself. I do that a lot. Admittedly, now this is going to be recorded and I'm going to sound crazy, but people say, why don't you take your mask off? And a part of me says, well, you know, I've left my house. I haven't washed my hands. Yes, I have sanitizer in the car, but it's my way to practice because the day I go back to working full time, I'm going to have to wear a mask. And my job is to talk to people for 9 hours straight in a day. And I'm going to have to be able to do so with a mask on. And technically, I could have done that today, but being that we're in a socially distant, really great environment, I chose not to, but I like to practice it. And I think that it's really important to be able to sit and practice and put it on and talk or sing or do whatever and hear yourself and watch yourself and get a feel for what that sounds like and what that looks like, because we can't say, oh, well, the good side is I don't have to smile anymore because nobody sees it. Because that changes the entire feeling of care. It changes the entire connection that you're building with that guest. It's like when you don't smile on the phone and it sounds like you're angry. And you don't want to sound angry, especially in a time in which people really need to feel self-assured and secure. And you're not going to make them feel that way if you are not aware of how you're presenting yourself. So yes, definitely the smile is going to be absolutely important, and that, you know, self-awareness is absolutely important. The posture is that much more important. So for those of you that sit all day, even if there's that big chair with the back, you can't necessarily sit there and sit back. You're going to look bored. Find a way, practice the way that you sit, look alert, feel better about how you're going to deliver that so that the guest is going to feel confident in the service that they're going to get.
May I share something with
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hello, this is Martin from Argentina. I am totally grateful with you, Vivian, and with Ecuador, Brazil, especially Renata, for inviting us. We feel so welcome. Thank you. And the other day, I don't remember in which webinar I saw it, that there was this suggestion of this new smile that is like this, touching your heart. Since our profession is so much from the heart to the guests, that's something that I will definitely do from now on. That's something I would like to share with you.
Yes, I saw. I was participating in the same webinar, and to be honest, it's something that I learned to do when I was in Malaysia, because in Malaysia they bow like this, always with a hand in their heart. And there's one particular hotel brand that uses that as their greeting as well. But the idea is, in a lot of places they bow. So whether they bow like this, or whether they bow like this, or whether they bow like this, the idea is that you're showing them some sense of a welcome in a way in which is not, let me shake your hand or make you feel awkward, because now a lot of people are not going to feel comfortable with shaking your hand, right? And so, yes, if you're going to bow, I naturally do that because of Malaysia and because I train at a hotel where that's how they say hello. And so it's become ingrained in me, and it's a really beautiful way of being able to do it. So if that feels comfortable for you, then fantastic. If you want to bow in a different way, it depends on the country how they bow, or if you want to do something that is going to make it look welcome without being like an awkward 3-year-old who's going like this, right? You don't want to be completely awkward. So yes, definitely anything that is going to make the guests feel welcome. But remember that that is that initial greeting. You're not going to hold it on there the entire time that you're talking, because then that's also strange. And that smile has to continue, that feeling and that sense of that smile and that sense of warmth has to continue throughout the entire interaction. So though you may certainly give them a really warm welcome and a really fond farewell by placing your hand on your heart and or giving them a bow, you can certainly also and must certainly also focus on how do you maintain that warmth and that smile, and how do you show it in your eyes, how do you show it in your voice, how do you show it in the parts that you are still continuing to display even with the covering of the mask.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you.
More questions? So Vivian, once again, I want to thank you for your time and for joining us. And also would like to thank you, like everybody that joined us and spent this afternoon with us. We'll give the word back to you and to Lucas. And also we have Igor and Paulo, our vice presidents, and Lydia. Sorry, I make some confusion. Livia and also Paulo, he's with Zudu, he's with us, our secretary. If they want to say something, like, feel free, and thank you to all of you that join us. Sorry?
Hi, Vivian.
So first, I wanted to be able to first say thank you for allowing me to be part of your celebration of Concierge Day and for welcoming me into your community. It is an honor to be able to spend some time with you and get to know so many of you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Renata,
Yes?
may I say something?
Yes, please, Dimitri.
So, first of all, I want to thank you, Renata, to invite us for this webinar and this friendship you have with all the Brazilian section, and I want to say a big hug for everyone. I know this is a difficult period we are for the moment, but thank you, Vivian, also for sharing with us all your professional experience and all the words you add to this webinar. Thank you so much. As you know, I am president of Leclerc France, so I'm quite far from you, but not with my heart, as you could understand. If I can say something, for me, it was very sad to not be with you this August, and I hope we will do it next year. I hope really so much, and even humanity lost its freedom during this period. You are the ones who will bring humanity back into the next experience for the guests and during your exchange with them. And therefore be confident, and especially in your know-how and interpersonal skills. And even it is hard work to know all the places. You are the guardian angels, as I wrote a little bit earlier. And even it's hard work to understand all the restriction and to know everything. This is our job. And we do it with heart, and during our time at the hotel and during our free time. So don't be shy, be confident, and do it. Just do it. Yes, we can. As you know now, now Cannes is open. So there is a time when everything is closed, and a time when everything is open again.
Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you.
Lucas?
Yeah, so if no one else have a question, I have one last question, and maybe I've even left a message to everyone. As a world traveler that you are, what is the feeling that you have once you see a concierge with the keys behind the desk?
So there's a huge respect that I have. If I see a concierge with the keys, that's the person I want to speak to. And it's not because other people aren't great or other people don't know. It's because I really value a lot people's education, and I know how much work and how much dedication and how much education it takes to really be able to achieve earning those keys. And to me, it's a really great level of respect. I happen to be part of the process when Rafael and Yelis in Sofitel Cartagena were getting their keys, later Leslie. And I know that, you know, just the idea of having to learn how to read that map upside down would make it a challenge for me. And, you know, people who are so culturally aware of others, and who, it doesn't matter where you come from, you take care of people in a way that shows them care and warmth and really focuses on making their experience something different, is not something that anybody can do. And I think that it is something that everyone wearing those keys can do and does. And so first thing is, every time I see them, I have a feeling of respect. I feel that there's also a level of, you know, dedication and care that's going to come with it. I love speaking to them because I know that I feel like they know everything, and if they don't know everything, they can find it. But like, you don't really think of, you know how you wear a watch, but you never really think of how it works. You just know that it shows you time. For me, that's almost like Leclerc or concierge is doesn't matter how it works or what network or who you access or who you ask to get that guest experience to be what it is. The fact is that you somehow make it happen. And there's the magic of, you know, you just make people's dreams come true and you make their experiences better. And so I really think that it's a wonderful organization, and I have a huge amount of respect for anybody who wears those keys, because it's not something you just get and stays with you forever. It's something you have to work hard to maintain. You have to continuously learn. You have to continuously study. You have to speak multiple languages and do so in a way in which, I know most of you probably English isn't your first language, but you've been sitting talking to me for 2 hours in English, and you know, nobody would know the difference, right? And that is what really is impactful. So I really have a huge amount of respect. I had told you, you know, if you want somebody else, I can get you somebody else. And you said, no, I want you. And I said, great, but I'm very humbled. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vivian. Anyone else?
Yes, please hire me.
I wish. I don't even have, I'm not working myself right now because of the coronavirus.
No worries, you're not the only one.
I know, we're all in it together, and that's the really wonderful thing, is we're a network of people who are going through the same thing at the same time. Recently, I saw this post, and I have this other account, and I posted it. It said, you know, did you ever wonder what it feels like to be in the hospitality industry during the coronavirus pandemic? It said, it's like when the Titanic was sinking and the band kept playing, we're the band, right? Exactly. And so we are the band, we're sinking, but we're still playing, and we will continue to play until, you know, the end of time. And so what a wonderful network of people to be in a band together with. That's really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vivian. And thank you, Lucas, for organizing all this for us.
Yep. So thank you, Vivian. Thank you for everyone who joined us. We hope to see Vivian and everyone in Rio next year in our Pan American Congress. So fingers crossed. And I hope everybody enjoy the content. So we're going to put this video on YouTube later this week. And to catch up, if someone have any questions or anyone have anything to edit, you can send a message through the Leclador Instagram, Leclador Brazil Instagram as well. So just let us know. I hope everybody enjoyed as much as I did.
Thank you. Thank you for arranging it. It was great.
I put up my email address for you all if you wanted to get in touch with me. That's my email. I put it on the chat.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Vivian. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Andres.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.